Welcome back, everyone. Hopefully all of you enjoyed working with the contour line drawing and you got a sense for just coming up with a nice clean line and how to vary that line by the pressure of your hand. Now is what we're going to do is go into the main part of the project. Now this is the final, I'm going to call it, for your midterm. It's bringing together all of the things that we did up to this point. And they were all crucial ideas, but gesture drawing is where I started from, as all of you know. We talked much about gesture drawing. I will do a little gesture drawing of this object, but gesture drawing basically is kind of a culmination of everything else that we've done. In other words, the more techniques you learn with drawing, you bring them together in that shorthand method. I wasn't able to talk about it that way at the beginning because all of these things that we went through you didn't understand or didn't know about. But in these little drawings I'm going to do, I'll talk about them in that order. So I'm going to be starting the 4 drawings with one little object, this little cat here that I have in my hands. And I'm going to be doing it from a variety of angles, 4 different angles. And you're going to do the same with yours. You're going to find an object. This object has a certain amount of simplicity as well as complexity. Simple because the forms are somewhat simple. Complicated because I could turn it in such a way and it gets to have great perspective, and it has top planes and side planes and front planes on these objects. And there's a little bit of detail in terms of eyes, nose, and how things are falling on the forms, like the bottoms of the feet and the black areas in their shapes. So it's got both. It's complicated as well as simple. If you can find an object like this, like some sort of figurine or some sort of stuffed animal, or if you have any bones like I just did with the last one, a little raccoon skull is wonderful to draw from. That would be really nice for this, for what we're going to do. So the first one that I'm going to do is going to be with the planes and angular lines. And so a few weeks back, you guys worked with this idea. It's a very important idea, and most likely you'll be using it in all the rest of the drawings we do in the class. It becomes that important. So I'm going to start with that technique. So I'm going to look at this little cat, and I'm going to look from my angle, maybe slightly down and tilted. So I'm going to start that way. Now, the easiest way to do an angular line drawing, and I didn't talk about it this way the first time you did it because there's so much to think about. The way I like to do them is start them with a gesture drawing, just simple forms with curves. Do the curves lightly. Once you get things where you want them, then go over it with all straight lines. In the end, the drawing doesn't want to have curves in it. In the end, they want to be straight lines. I am going to put planes and plane breaks, if you remember what those were. So a plane break is like where the top of this head meets the side. No line there, it's a plane break. Those are going to be crucial in the drawing on all the forms that I'm going to place in. And then we're going to put in some plane hatching. So out of all 4, this one will probably take a little longer. So I'm going to begin that way. So I'm going to look at this thing from my angle, and I'm going to probably put a little bit of a tilt to it. And so the way that I'm going to start it is, I'm going to start off with a head, and I'm imagining looking down on it. And I'm going to start off kind of loose, and I see that the head is a little wider than it is high. So I'm going to do this with it, okay? Start off loose, general. I'm going to dust that out. This angle for me is going this way. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to place in kind of like a little drumstick, if you will. Now, I'm going to get rid of this real quick because I see a problem arising. And so this is going this way. This is going this way. And then this would be a little bit foreshortened at the bottom. So like a cylinder tilted, like when we got into the cylinders, so I'm treating it like that as a simple shape. Now, if this is the top of its head for me, and I'm looking down at it a little bit, so this is the top. So if I ran a line going this way, this would do this. If I begin to think a little bit of the angle of the leg, a foot's going to be here. So the envelope is going to do something like this. And then coming up. So the envelope is going to be in there something like this. Now, this angle for the top of his head would go this way. His feet would want to do the same. So I'm trying to guess at it, at the beginning like you would, and I'm just going to kind of gesture something in just loosely and quickly and try to get a sense of where these things might be. Okay, so I'm going to do a loose gesture like that, how a leg might come around and the bottom of it come in and this part go this way. So I'm going to do a little character like that. So I haven't put in here, I haven't put any straight lines in here yet. Okay, and this is fine. You can start yours exactly the same way. So here I'm just trying to look at my lines. This is more of an angle, and I got to watch how I hold it because I'm more than likely going to turn this thing when I'm drawing it and run into a problem in the end. So anyways, I'm doing that. Now I'm going to take this leg that's in front of me, and I'm going to run a vertical line just to see where it goes. And I think it's pretty close to where it ought to go. So now with that in mind, is what I'm going to do is I'm going to start over this now, or I could measure, which you guys should do with yours. So I'm going to do the same with mine because I think there's a problem. I'm going to measure this head from how I'm tilting it coming down. And it's really quite large. It's bigger than its body. So I think I got that. So first I didn't think I did. I'm going to measure it again. It comes down to about here. So let's see what we've got. So it's pretty close. So measure these kinds of distances just to make sure. Now, this angle, here's the middle of his head. Now, that was the middle, but now the perspective center for me is to the left. So I'm going to make a spot there. And then I'm going to say this angle is going this way. Now I'm going to start to use straight lines. The top of his head still comes straight, and then I see a plane break. Now, with perspective, which we've already been through at this point, this angle that I've got that's doing this, that should be all of my angles doing this, that would tell me the plane break that you guys cannot see, but there's a top and there's a front. That's going to be here. So now, you know, once we got into the boxes, we can understand that this is a top. And if I box this out, like this angle to this angle, and now this one over my curve, it's going to give me somewhat of a top plane that's going to begin to turn things for me. So that does that, and then this drops down. Okay, so now this is this way. So now it feels like it's going this way and over my surface. Now I get another plane break, and the plane break is the top of his nose. And that's there. This is parallel to that. This is why I said it's complicated and simple. This can be complicated watching the perspective. There's a one on the bottom this way, and I got a slight angle to this. So it would be, it's not perfectly vertical for me. So it's like this, and it's like this. So I'm blocking those things out in simple straight lines. Now, if this line came down and hit his nose, this nose would come out a little bit. So in other words, on a straight line or an angle, it would come out a little bit, which means there's another plane in here. And so I'm going to place that plane. So now, and there's a side on this side. So I'm going to bring that down. And so this would be this way, and then this angle would go this way, because eventually there's an angle this way. So now I've got a top, it's going around the ball, but it's a straight line. This has got to go that way. And then these lines will hook up this way. And so this becomes my side. And this will do the same. It'll take a little bit of an angle. And this will do the same little angle. So now, even though it's on a curved surface, I reduced it to one angle, two angles, three angles on the top, even though it suggests a curve, and that's what you need to do. So this is doing this. I know there's a plane. I see a slight plane underneath that angles this way, and I don't see much of it, but it would angle that way like that. So I'm going to leave that like that. Now, the eyes, they're curved, but they're on the head, but I've got to get the angle of them. So the angle, how close is it to the center? Does this drop perfectly straight? It doesn't. So I'm going to be a little more fussy with it. Comes out a little bit, down a little bit, because it's really going over a curve, right? So technically, this is a smaller plane break from here to here. You don't have to be that fussy, but really look, because you're running straight lines over a ball, so it's constantly curving. So I'm trying to figure out now, where is this eye? How close is it to that center line? So it's about there, and then I can see it going up in this direction. Over this way, because I've got to get it to look like it's sitting on an angle like that. So it's going that way, even though it's a curve. And then I get those eyelashes, which is interesting in this little object. So they make a little bend in them too. They're coming, I'm just blocking them out. Now I could go all around that whole thing with straight lines and it'll look like a curve. Now how far, this has a little more distance from there. And so watch your angles. This tips this way, this tips this way, and this way. Okay, so they're like little rectangles, the axis line going like that. Everybody understands it, right? It's on a ball, gotta be tilted. So it's what's interesting to me about these eyelashes is when there's a strong angle here and it meets the eyelashes at a real strong angle like this. And maybe I'll put the triangle I see, a little detail, since it's all straight lines, and it meets this way. So it does that. So anyways, they're in there, which is kind of characteristic of this character. And anyways, this is a straight, and then it turns into another straight. So I had a curve underneath. Sometimes let your straight lines overlap. I could go this way. The next one could overlap that line. The next one could overlap that line if it's a curve like that. And so if you kept doing that all the way around, you'll get a circle, right? And that's what doing it with straight lines are. Sometimes just leaving it overlap. Because I know some of you, when we actually did this project, had a hard time thinking of a curved object with straight lines. So I'm going to do that. Keep holding your pencil up against there and to see what they're doing in its general sense. And this turns again. This comes to my high point, begins to angle down, angles this way. Where's my Y point? It's kind of at an angle to the eye, about right there. And then I begin to angle in and begin to angle over. So now, there shouldn't be, at this point, there should be no curves on that head. Those are all straight lines. So what I am going to do now is watch where the ear is. So I'm going to take this. So what we do, I'm imagining this line here. If I rip the ear off, what would that shape look like underneath? So if he had no ear, the shape would look like this up against, on that object. It would look like that, okay? So that's, now when I can get it like that, it gives me this as a plane. So then the ear comes up. Let's do it like this now. So this becomes the side of the ear like this, the plane break. And then it comes to here, and it comes to there, and it comes up to the point, and it comes down, okay? So you get the feel of the ear, and this is my plane break. So is what helps this angle parallel to that angle. This is at the right angle to that. This technically would come down a little bit more. So anyways, the ear is placed for how I see it, okay, from my angle. Okay, that should be a little clearer for everybody. On there, there's a little ribbon, so I'm just going to have fun with the straight lines of the ribbon and what I see and how it angles in. And it's a little decorative sort of thing that's on there. And I'm going to do that. And I see a seam line that I like because it gives me the structure of the top. And on this side with the ear, there's actually a top plane. Comes around like that. And then the ear turns, so the top line makes a turn. And then it comes down to the head like that. These lines, just because there's so many of them, I might get rid of them so you can see what's going on. Top plane, okay. I'll hatch in some lines in a moment. I'm going to finish sketching this out real quick. So that's there. This is my center line. This is going to be a plane break. I'm going to put a plane break here, as you'll see. This line on the side is about here. It's narrower, and so he's in there. So we're coming down this way, and the top of the leg, I'll put it here. I'm going to make sure this works on the side. It's pretty close. How the leg is cut off, if I cut it off, would be in here. Okay, I'm just going to clean this up a little bit. There's a lot of charcoal on there. It might get to be hard to see, so I'm going to do that. So I'm going to take that way, this leg this way, and I'm going to kind of square off these feet a little bit with straight lines. I'm going to put a plane in here, this one coming here, one in the front going up to the top to the high point here, one coming down this way, okay. And then of course this end sticks out a lot, and then the leg adjoins. Okay, so I'm going to leave that leg like that. This probably could be bigger, but I'm going to leave it. Okay, I'm just lowering this. This was too long, so that looks better. Anyways, I'm going to come over to the next one. This comes out my angle here to here. I don't know. They're close. They might not be. Actually, they're better. They're a little better now. I'll leave them like that. And this one's coming out this way. Flares out a little bit. Top. Thickness. Bottom. And then over. So this is my shape. And then the top. Okay. So I'm going to leave him like that, and then I'm going to put on a couple of arms, and then we're going to be done with that, and I'm going to show you some model lines on there. So again, watch the thinness of something, then it flares out, it comes this way, straighter that way, this way. So that'll be like that. And this one up against his face, let's just say here. Watch your angles. Take your time with these things. I know by the time you watch these videos and do these things, it's going to take you a little bit of time to do it. It'll take you longer than the 2.5 hours, but take the time to do it because it's important this first part of the class. It's important on the first part of this class to understand these ideas, because as we get into shading, which is going to happen next, I'm not going to be able to spend any time working on these techniques. So I'm still refining this, as you see. I'm bringing this ear up a little bit, which I think looks better. So there's my general straight line drawing. Okay, I'm going to keep it like that. If I had more time, I would spend more time on it, but I'm going to leave it. So what I'm going to do now is place in some hatching lines so that you can see what that's all about. Because I know some of you, again, had a hard time with reducing these things all to straight lines. So there's a difference between model lines and straight and hatching lines. Hatching lines, if you had a plane like this, hatching lines is putting the plane, keeping this plane, if it's like this, keeping the lines hatched in its direction. And so this plane could go this way, but I could also, if you want, I could run it vertical like this. And the more space you have between it, the lighter the plane, as all of you found out, okay? But with plane hatching, is what happens is the lines are always straight. You know, they could be at an angle, vertical, but you can cross over them, but it's either going to be this angle or this angle all the time. Model line, which I'll show you next, we can use curves. So they call it modeling because you can cross them over. But modeling are curved lines, plane hatchings are straight lines. This is all straight lines, okay? That's the difference between the two. So if I want to turn this body back, like a lot of you had actually did on your own, which worked out pretty good, and some of you had a hard time with it, is where this plane is here, I could keep these lines very close together and just keep them parallel, and then start to spread them out. And then try to get them darker and darker and darker and darker and darker and darker again like that. And then I could also, if I want to angle it back a little more, say if this is a plane, I could cross over them this way, but I can't use a curve. Cannot use a curve. I could cross over that way. So that got a little bit darker. These could just be parallel, lighter in the middle, or lighter. I've got it lighter in this case here. These begin to angle in. So this is a plane break here, plane, plane. So these begin to angle in this way. And these on this side begin to angle in a little bit this way. These are a little straighter, and then these kind of wrap around like this. So they're coming in and around like that. So, you know, because there's still a curve there. So you're coming to the center line and over to the center line over like that. But if they're darker down there, I could cross over them in the angle of the plane because the plane is angling that way. Okay. On this line, I've got a plane break here. There's a division. There's a division. And then I've got one here. So I could say this is closer to the light. So I might just keep them very, very spacious. Here I might make them a little darker, but I'm going to keep them like this line, right? Keep them parallel across. But I might make the plane as it meets here a little darker and just fade it down a little bit. So this is a little stronger. I could even take where this plane meets and put in a few more. Might have a hard time seeing it, but it'll be a little darker than that. But you can't get this as dark as that. That's the problem. And that's what's starting to happen now, so I've got to be careful. These are going this way, so the line direction can turn it, and I can get it darker by doing that. Okay, so watch your hatching lines as you place them. This...
You don't have much battery left, so...
This becomes an interesting placement. So these go this way. Placement this way. These are angling back. It's another plane. These are here. So I got 3 different planes across the front of this. Okay, I'm going to try to wrap this up quickly. These are wrapping around this way. Okay. So the same with this. I would have to watch my planes on this side, my planes on this side. I might reduce it to 3. And so this is working this way and lighter. Again, keep them straight at the angle of the plane. These are in the middle. I might get them a little bit darker, but be consistent. I'm trying to do this quickly because time's running out. And then these are angling back, okay? Really far back. Strong angle line I'm using. Strong angle line. Cross it over a little bit. So you want the 3 different values in there the best you can. 3 different values. There is a plane break taking place here. So I'm just kind of getting them in here now. There's an underplane in here that I'm seeing. And then, of course, these are going to cross over in this direction. So I want to get those. And then this is going to be more in the middle. Watch this as a plane break again. You'll get it. With the pencil, you'll have a little more control than I'm doing here. It's because the charcoal smears. Now I'm going to try to get it dark, a little darker, bolder, like that. So anyways, you can see the 3 different values in there. And here there's certain little planes in here I'd have to take my time and get, front and tops, okay? A couple of things on the face I do want to show you. There is a plane break here. I'm going to place it in. It comes this way. It comes from the side of his head this way. And so this one is in here. Watch these inside planes, and this one's going this way. This one begins to angle this way on the face. On the ear, it's coming up like this. There's a curve to it, but I'm just going to generalize this whole thing because of time. This comes up like that, but I could also bring it that way. So this line, if it went this way, then these would change that way. This angles this way, and the front of his face is this way. So now I've got a problem trying to get this a little darker. See, if I get that a little darker than that, it can help to turn that plane. This one, we can do it this way as well as angling in the direction this way, so that this plane meets this plane at a different angle. Top planes, this comes up. I'm going to keep it kind of light right there. And then it's going to come over the top. And then it's going to go back. And then I'm going to cross it over. Still, all of them are straight. Okay. Coming this way. And then these pulling in this direction. I know sometimes it's hard to know which way to make these lines on the plane. So keep thinking it as as if you're touching something. I always imagine touching it, and what would it do? How would it look? The arm, there's a high point that I see. and then with the wrist, somewhat of a wrist, it turns. So these are going this way, this is doing this. So keep those planes in mind as you kind of execute these things. The top of this is going to curve this way. Okay. And there's an end to his nose. I would sketch it in and then go back with the straight lines. But there is an end to it, and there are little angle lines on it that you would have to kind of discover. Okay. I'm going to leave this one like this, but again, a lot of you with your straight lines, I know have had a hard time. So watch where two planes meet, watch that. You got to draw that line. You could get it darker up against that plane edge like this. Then where this line meets, you could be a little bit lighter, but hook them right to the edges of the lines as they go down so you get your distinctions. These are just dark. I'm just going to make them dark so something shows up here a little bit with the eyelashes. So in the end, there's something there. Okay, we're going to stop this one for a minute, and I am going to resume with the next 3 drawings.